Humans will often deride you for not being, as they called, laid, or to mate with another human. But a lot of the time, these people are very likely are not mating either. But when they say this, they're not actually disparaging you for not being, as they say, laid. What they're deriding you for is not being able to. What they are suggesting is that you lack the substance of being required to be worthwhile enough to be accepted by females and subsequently be allowed to attain certain milestones in life and be successful in those. They do not mock you and demean you for you have not mated. They do this because you have failed to establish or to provide for yourself a quality of life. They are rejecting a low quality being. It seems that this is less about mating and more about status. They are informing you that you are not their equal, and they are antagonizing you for it on the behest of the authority structure that owns them, that this assumes rends them or compels them to do this. Boys will beat you and call you a loser, but the girls will prove them right. It seems here that reproduction is built up as something of great hedonistic value, that you should have it because it's something good for you. You don't have much time, you don't know what you're missing, this person will be the light of your life, they will fulfill your needs, they will make you feel valuable and wanted. It doesn't seem that people seek out boyfriends and girlfriends to put other people first, to then put the mother of your child and your child before yourself. That's not why you're doing this. You're doing this. It's a very selfish, it has occurred to this person that the humans of the specific subtext of culture with which this is familiar seek out reproductive behavior or romantic intermingling with the sole pretext of gaining something for themselves. Then all of a sudden, at some point, people will spring up and tell you that, oh no, you require emotional maturity to be willing to make sacrifice. It's all about giving, not taking. What people then might say is that, oh, well, you take care of each other. It's about taking care of each other's needs. Bollocks. It's very clear that the model of the value of care comes from the domestic, the family. These people who do everything for you and get nothing back in return, and who hate you, by the way. Your parents hate you, and they can't say because they believe that they are obligated by society to do it or some such thing, but there is no way anyone with any shred of decency does not hate someone to whom they have to give up everything and get nothing back in return, and nothing. I don't care if you got them a toaster or a neck massager for their birthday or a poorly drawn nothing. They got nothing in return, and yet all you ever hear from them is, oh no, just seeing you happy is enough of a reward. Just seeing you smile, you're so great. Just your love is all I need. Bullshit. All right, but you deep down inside, everyone must think, well, if that's what giving back means, even if it's a bit more work, how hard? If that's what giving back means with a parent, how hard could it be with a spouse? Let me tell you something. If you ever get a man or a woman, free ride's over, asswipe. It's over. You're going to have to work for a living now. Why do you think it's our grandparents and our great-grandparents who have to raise us? Our parents ain't having that. The modern convenience has made us soft. It's shown us this world where there is this vestige or proximity to fun in life, this relatively cushy little dream, and there's no way we're going to wake up from that and go back to reality. In the time that our grandparents, and certainly more so our great-grandparents came from, there was no such thing as fun. Everything was work and misery. Everyone was a Dust Bowl farmer, and there was no escape. There was no television, no pizza, no heroin, no contraceptives, no human rights, or well, there was alcohol, but it was illegal. It was illegal because, like, how if to them, and remember that life had only gotten harder, had only been harder from that point before that, and going that direction into the past. So misery and pain and suffering, that's all that they ever knew. To them, misery was life. And trying to get around misery, trying to escape, it was like trying to get around life. You're a thief. You're a dirty little thief. Fun? Who the boop do you think you are? You sit here and you take it and you grin and bear it and slog through it just like everybody else. And that attitude prevails till today, is extant now. That's why drugs are illegal. And if you think you try to overcome it with comedy, think again. If you acted like you booped around, they'd kill you. Imagine a world where everyone is like a cop, and there are no cops. That's what. Maybe there was a sheriff. That's what it was like. And there was strict adherence to authority, to rules, and nowadays that all seems mean and authoritarian. But that's what life was like for people then. You didn't do what you wanted to do. You did what you had to do. And as a result, by the time children came about, it came naturally. You just go slog through misery. That's life. But by the time of the 70s and 80s, around the time that our parents were born, there was plenty of food and plenty of work and entire industries devoted to creating dreams you could see, and in those dreams, everyone's doing smack and booping each other, and of course, and somehow man and woman, convinced that each other's genitals have heroin in it, they become culture explodes into this lewd and lascivious, debauched mosh pit. And of course, by the time then, when the children come and they see that this is bullshit, they say, "Oh, give him to mom. Yeah, mom's good at that. See, she loves it. Bullshit." And now we're here. We're still here doing this, believing this. When are we going to learn? In the words of Filthy Frank, it's time to stop. It's time to stop. Like this woman, she beat me. She suffocates me and rips teeth out of my mouth, but she'll sit there and lie to my face. Like, oh, I never did that. But she thinks that because she didn't do this for a specific reason that it's like it doesn't count, or that, well, yeah, of course she didn't suffocate me like this with her hands around my neck, but she suffocates me by pinning a 5-year-old to the ground, and arms to my chest with her whole weight, trying to keep my hands immobile so that she can rip loose teeth out of my mouth. And she thinks because the tooth is loose and because it was all about, mothers are just supposed to get rid of the loose teeth, she thinks that it doesn't hurt me then. And then and then she does all these things, and then she tries to take away the ability to be taken seriously from me. And so does my grandmother. She continually, I told her to stop talking to her about me, and she does it anyway. She's like, well, she's your mother. It's like, that's really, to this, no one ever has to acknowledge anything because apparently they're just allowed to do this to you. That's what, no one ever, it's perfectly characterized by how she acts. Immediately afterwards, she gets off of me and she walks into the other room and she picks, she puts the tooth in one of those, the plastic things that go on the bottle. And she comes back in and she's like, she looks down at me and she taps me with her foot. Like, get up. What's wrong with you? Don't you want to see it? Like nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong. And so because she didn't do anything wrong, when you confront these people, nothing ever comes to mind because it's not abnormal. It's not wrong. Mothers are just supposed to beat their children when they're bad or get rid of loose teeth. Doesn't matter how. And if I ever said anything about abuse, she was like, "What? I went for CPS, and CPS will come in here and we'll put you in a house where you'll be raped constantly, and I can have you living in this room with nothing on a mat and a dish of water like a dog." And I used to fear that. I used to be afraid of a bowl of water and a mat. I would absolutely take a rug any day over you. And then she thinks like everything, she'll come up with anything, like I don't, if I ever drew anything, she would become angry, and it's
it's the trivialization. The first thing she would say is that, oh, but what about all the time? What about all those times? I don't care. I don't care about how much money you spent or how many movies, arcades, theaters. You can keep all of it. I don't want anything to do with you. As if that makes it okay. Then why does she have my birth certificate? There was no reason for that. My grandmother said, well, it's only fair. Like, no, it's not fair. I don't care. It doesn't matter who she is. She's not my mother. I don't care where I came from. She's not my mother. My mother's name was Jessica Bayash Matthews, and she's dead. Then it's just the non-stop gaslighting. And then she calls. She calls occasionally as if like, oh, see, I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm not making it into this big deal. Well, it is. Is constantly trying to take away that anything happened. And everyone does this to me. No one will ever acknowledge that it's like anything serious happened. And this is, well, to my everlasting disgrace. I believe that. I let it go. I always acted, oh yes, she's a bit overzealous, but that's just how mothers are supposed to be. Absolute bollocks. Layla was her name. Big, thick, licking, disgusting. I hope you die screaming, bitch. You hear that? And she better not say anything. I don't care how far away you are. I will track you down and I will fuck you up. Stop calling here. You're not welcome in my life. You're not welcome around me. You better not show your face ever again. You stay where you belong. Gone. My grandmother will always try to push it. Will always try to. Because apparently that's what love is. That's what it's like. You're just stuck with these people. She's just she's just some whore who got impregnated by a crack dealer, a crackhead, and now I'm this mess that no one, even not myself, even has had the guts to clean up. And I just had to my everlasting dismay, I have to just be associated with this person for the rest of my life. I shouldn't be here. I don't belong here. There was someone named Kevin Thomas Baker who would once say he and his friends would run around. He and his friend Gilliam and his friend Marcos Monte Augustilion Garcia used to run around saying that I was a dirty, filthy waste of space, ugly nigger who should have been aborted. End quote. And every time they would say this over and over again, it would die down, or there was a lull in that. I would say to them, though I don't appreciate being spoken to this way, you are telling the truth, you are correct, and you are being honest. And every time I'd say that, he'd fall over laughing onto a stupid skateboard. That skateboard still annoys me. How many times he's threatened to hit me with it. And they all do the same thing. He did the same thing. He didn't hit me as much, or when he did, he was small, so it didn't. But they all deny, like, that they ever do these things to me. Even him. He always mistreated me. He always ran around cursing at me and screaming at me and calling me a faggot. And why? Because I won't capitulate to this ogling every tart who traipses by. And usually that girl was his sister. Kevin, that's your sister. Why am I a faggot for not, maybe you should have respect for your sister. But then again, maybe she didn't have respect for herself, seeing as that the first thing I saw her doing was sucking some guy's face on the park bench in the playground in front of everybody. But again, it's just, why me? And I asked him this years, and it's not like I always told him I didn't like being treated that way. And it's not like he was always behaves like this, He only did that in front. When we were alone, when I studied computers, he wanted to study computers. When I was doing improv, he wanted to do improv. He was always a person who's like one, but only that was clearly something he did, a front he put up in front of his friends, which only makes it even more aggravating that he was one of the closest things I ever had to a friend, and to know that even he couldn't choose me over them. That no matter what kind of dirtbag scoundrels these people are, they apparently are always preferable over me. And people have been doing this my whole life. And he was probably the kindest of the school children, of the children of the urban youth children, whichever you want to call them. But you see, to him it was always jokes. And he's like, well, I'm guessing that is the justification. That, that's just what, once again, it's just what mothers do. It's just what friends do. They joke with each other. Well, this joke is getting old, and it's always on me. No one ever pulls this on anybody else. It's just me. Why does the Marcos get any? Nope. It's always me. And it's not like I wasn't clear. I always told him I don't like being treated that way. Please don't talk to me like that. Like, well, shut up. I wrote that down one time. I was helping him with his homework, and he wrote down, whilst I was trying to explain the work, he writes, shut up. Not even shut up, shut up, on paper. It's probably somewhere around here, laminated. It's like... And I call him years later after, and then that's the thing. Then one day, I guess his father was a crack addict too, and which I assume is why he and his whole family were this race of like beautiful Hollywood rock star people, and it's like they only ever deigned down to my level because like we happened to be in the same pit. And then suddenly his father comes back into recovery, and I guess he's a real boy now, and then he dumps me. Despite everything that happened, I didn't leave him. He just throws me away. And then he comes back out of nowhere and then says, oh, I'm by the handball park. And so I go, oh, okay, he's come back. Okay, we're going to be friends again. Then I go to this handball. I don't even like handball. He knows that. But I go there to play with him every day for hours. Regardless of I go over there to play with him. And what does he do? He just sits there. He never, could we play now? No, I don't feel like it. You invited me here to play. He doesn't want to play. I played with everyone else, but I came there to play with him. He doesn't want to play with him. And then after months of that, I gave up, and then I left, and I am pissed off. And we live in the same building. I met him when he was 8, and we were until he was 16. That's when I knew him. And he's 20 now. And we lived in the same building. We still live in the same building. And I have to see this degenerate around the neighborhood. And every time I see this dirtbag, he looks sup, like nothing ever happens. It's so annoying. I wish I had the strength in me to tell him to shut the fuck up. I didn't, you always demeaned me and disgraced me because apparently, it's like he knew the second he saw me that I was he was 6 years younger than me. So he was 8 and I was obviously this big kid. And he knew that I was the kind of person who was never accepted, not good enough to be accepted by my peers. And that's why I had to intrude into the lives of children where it was easy. And they all punished me for it. That's why I think he did it. And then I called him years later and asked him, why did you do this to me? I never did anything to you, and you treated me this way clearly. And then he says, his response was, it was because I was young. And that angers me so much that he said that. Because you see, for him, this goes away for him. He's 20 now. This happened from when he was 8, 20. No one cares how he acted in that period. This goes away from him. This doesn't go away from me, scumbag! This is just how it's going to be now. And it's just, I'm the one, everyone acts like it doesn't matter anymore. Am I the one who bears the burden of history? Am I the only one who really remembers? It's But apparently love means never having to say that you're sorry. There's no such thing as love. And there's no apologizing for this. But I'll give him one thing. He was right. I should have been aborted. This was all unnecessary. You know what they'll write on my epitaph? Unnecessary. In an ant colony, most of the ants, if not all of them, are expendable. They have no interests of their own. They exist only to serve the hive or the colony. There is no individuality. And this may very well be as a result that individuality is a mechanism that serves reproduction. It serves the reproduction of beings who must compete for females and males. It is romance that results in individuality, and that therefore Aphrodite might be heavily associated with the individualistic aspects of our culture. On its first attempt to sculpt Aphrodite, something this may have done incorrectly was the wine glass, first the temple and then the wine glass pattern in the face. Typically the temples are straight down or curve inward, and then the cheeks come out, then curve back inward like an arrow, and then back upward an arrow, the other side of the arrow up toward the nose, the jowls, and between the cheek coming inward and then going back upward for the jowl on both sides of the face, a line straight down, in between them the mouth. A similar pattern occurs with the abdominal diaphragm shell ribs. The ribs come together, and then there's a line straight down for the abdominal region and a groove for the hips along the side down to the groin. The hips of Aphrodite are something that this did not do correctly the first time, which is why this would like to redo it. On Aphrodite's hips seem to have this X effect, where it is that the ridges near the top hip bones seem to there are 4 points, almost like on a quadrilateral, and the corners on the bottom are a bit wider set apart than the 2 corners at the top, but they are close to being a box, and there seems to be a ridge effect upward toward the top hips, the top of the hips, and then they slant outward down around the corners of the lower box. The leg sockets at the bottom corners and the love handles, curiously enough, named toward the top, at the top corners. Aphrodite's waistline has to be so that it is flat enough that it can generate the slab hip effect, so that there's almost this flat shelf that almost like curves inward after the side of the hip just a bit, and then concaves into the underpants region or the abdominal pouch, but also round enough as if the bones of the around the edges of the hip are this ring, that they seem round, bulbous, that I suppose something could pass through them. A bit of an oval ring. A quality this would give to a fertility goddess is the concave dimple between the collarbones and the contouring around the neck tendons, as if there was an obstruction in the airways, and the increased negative pressure from the lungs or somewhere in the body were resulting in the body being pulled inward, the flesh being pulled inward toward the chest cavity, which results in this very constricted look. Or it might be the way that humans look when they are lying down, which might be some borderline, if not archetypal characteristic imbued with the deranged or perverse human reproductive impulses that Aphrodite is associated with, that human beings have learned to associate with the interest in breeding that, as this prior mentioned, Aphrodite is associated with. That also being associated with this shortage of breath, as if the degree to which human beings are refined from the banality, the brutality, and the drudgery and perversion of the mortal world is what allows us to reject the depraved and sordid impulses that come from it, and that therefore, particularly females who are prone to being rejective, are in a way more refined, or have more power, more complexity, and are more refined this way. And it is as if they are short of breath, that they revert or devolve, they are brought down closer to the state of the beast, and therefore succumb to lust and to perceiving the value in another that is derivative from it, and as opposed to being refined to the degree of being above perceiving interest in such tawdry things. Were this to sculpt Freya, the Norse queen of the Valkyries and the Norse goddess of
fertility, this would give her the same quality. The concave or slope downward toward the abdomen, this conveys as being imbibed with or depicting a similar characteristic, that of being receptive. It's not merely that love does not exist, with which this angers. It is that it is a sense of inequity, in that the world is still potent enough to be deferred to, but that I am not. That I'm not good enough. I am not loved, but the world deserves to be loved. When you say I love you, that's not between two people. That's an expectation from a society. And when you know that you have been rejected from that society, in a very fundamental sense, it seems that it is wrong. It's not true to really say that. Everyone else may not see that, but when you know that, it seems that there's such a rejection of people who are different, you don't even acknowledge the concept that everyone just has to be part of the group, because it's just people who are adopted don't exist. But when you turn out to be that person, it seems that if you're not really one of the people who say I love you, then maybe you ought not be doing it. And if you were to do it anyway, to be polite, what would you be doing it for now? If it only really means something because you're one of them, but you're not one of them, so why do it now? My great-grandmother and grandmother together took care of me throughout my entire life, and when they both needed me most, I pushed them away, because I am an angry and unhappy person. This often angers at how it is rejected by the world, and particularly women, but look at how this has treated the women it had. I'm sure the world, the cosmos, wanted a better son, and instead it got me. What would everyone's life had been like if someone of more substance had been in my place? They'll never know, because my existence has robbed them of that. As Hermes said. I asked Hermes when this was speaking to him in a lucid dream, why it is that he chose to mate with Aphrodite. And he said, well, I did it because she was smoking hot. But what I ended up getting was a gift not so much just like passion, but also like that of knowledge, that changed the way that I would experience the rest of eternity, that I could treasure for the rest of my immortal life. You see, if you're going to pick a girl, you should pick the prettiest one you can find. But only pick one whose beauty comes from something that only you can see, or that very few can see. Otherwise, you might just lose her. And now a word from the CEO of Cheese Corp Incorporated, Bellman Rama.
Yeah, so normally we'd have you donate to the Aphrodite GoFundMe, but we're not going to do that this time. I'm gonna change the price of the other ones. You can go and donate there, if you want, because I don't want you giving anything to Aphrodite. Aphrodite's a boop. Yeah, so don't do like that. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you for coming to the Cheezer Show, and don't forget 2 + 2 is fish. All right.